What's up, everybody? So the talk of the MMA community right now is the potential matchup between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev. And I'm hearing a lot of different takes and a lot of different opinions, so I thought that I would make a video and kind of give my initial thoughts on what we're looking at in this matchup, because I do want to mention this is the best fight to make at 205 right now. This is the best fight to make at 205. And not only is it the best fight, but the style clash that we would see on display from these two guys, man, would just be absolutely spectacular. So first, let's talk about what Magomed Ankalaev brings to the table, because I think that there's a little bit of a narrative that isn't exactly correct and exactly fair in the assessment, which is the fact that Magomed Ankalaev is some phenom of a grappler that, oh my God, if he gets a hold of Alex Pereira, that's all she wrote, and you know, lights out, man, just go ahead and call it a wrap. Nah. Look, I like Magomed Ankalaev. I think he's a very, very good fighter. He has incredibly good striking that, in my opinion, is actually underrated by the MMA community right now. I think Magomed Ankalaev is the second best striker in light heavyweight behind Alex Pereira. His technique is tight. His footwork is outstanding. He has very, very sharp boxing. His movement is good. And he really does basically everything correct on the feet that you could want in a fighter, especially at light heavyweight. His movement for a guy at 205 is exceptional. But the narrative that I have a problem with is that he's like some Khabib Nurmagomedov on the ground, right? Just because, you know, the Wicked Witch from the West here, Magomed Ankalaev. I like Ankalaev, man, but you can't tell me this dude doesn't look like the Wicked Witch from the West with that nose, man. But all right, in all seriousness, his grappling is good. He has good wrestling. But my problem with this, what does Ankalaev do with the grappling, right? Where we see guys like Jan Blachowicz who have been able to take Alex Pereira down. Jan Blachowicz, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. You saw him take Poatan's back. You saw him looking for, you know, submissions immediately. With Magomed Ankalaev, in the matchups that we've seen from him inside the UFC, other than him knocking people the hell out, when it comes to the grappling, he's more of a control style of grappler. He's not necessarily looking for vicious ground and pound, and he's definitely not chasing submissions. Now, does that mean that he might not come into this fight and be chasing submissions? I mean, maybe he does. But from the track record that we have seen and the samples thus far that we have from Magomed, that's not what history tells us in this matchup. So what are we looking at? Well, if he's just going to control Pereira, that's a problem. Because Alex Pereira, over the past few years, his grappling has, or not even the past few years, he's only been in the UFC for, what, 2 years, for God's sake, and he's done this much already? I mean, the guy has just improved every single time out that we have seen him. And ever since, I've said this multiple times now on my channel, ever since he went from 185 to 205, whether he was winning or losing at 185, he was an absolute shell of himself. He was a skeleton. He was cutting way too much weight. And if you go back and watch the fights of him at 185, specifically against Bruno Silva, even in the Adesanya fights, I mean, hell, even, you know, in the Andreas Mihailidis fight, you can see how drained he is. And ever since he's moved up to 205, he has more energy. He has even more pop on his shots, which is just even crazier to think about. And he has a technicality advantage over a lot of these guys. Now, in a fight with Magomed Ankalaev, I love the styles, man. I love the styles because Alex Pereira, his takedown defense is drastically improved. We saw against Jan Blachowicz at UFC 291. Yeah, he got taken down. He got his back taken. There were some moments that were definitely scary. If you're on the side of Poatan Pereira, there were some moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. You know, first round, Jan Blachowicz is hanging on his back. He's looking for a rear naked choke. But ever since that fight, we saw Yuri Prochazka try to take him down, and he did take him down. But Alex does such a great job of just holding position on bottom and accepting, you know, bottom position and just not taking any risks. And he holds your hands in tight, and he basically just stalls out to make it through the round, because Alex is a very physically strong dude. Like, people are acting like, you know, people are just going to go in there and steamroll right through him. He's a big guy. He's strong, and it's hard to close the distance on him because the consequences are so dire if you get hit by anything. I mean, I wish I could walk around and literally have that type of threat where anything that I throw literally can put somebody out. I mean, Alex Pereira literally knocked a man out at UFC 300 with 2 knuckles. Like, that's the type of individual that Poatan is, man. And so Magomed Ankalaev coming into this fight says he's not going to use any wrestling, which, if I had to bet on that, I don't believe him at all, man. I think Magomed, I think that you're telling some tales, man. I think you are absolutely going to mix in the grappling. And if I was Magomed, I would be mixing in the grappling, because if there is an area that you are going to be better than Poatan, despite how Poatan has improved in terms of the grappling, defense at least, Magomed Ankalaev still is probably going to be able to take him down. Now, the question is it worth the energy? Because what we saw Magomed do against Jan Blachowicz, he had a lot of control time, but he didn't do a lot with the takedowns, and that fight ultimately ended in a draw, which had Dana White furious, had the whole MMA fan base up in shambles. So hopefully we don't see a draw again, especially at light heavyweight, because I feel like the division has just been kind of cursed ever since Poatan Pereira has moved up and kind of taken the division, into his hands. This is a great stylistic matchup, man, because with Ankalaev, he has really good hands. He's got good hand speed. He's been vulnerable to the leg kicks. We saw that against Jan Blachowicz. We saw him his last time out against Johnny Walker. He looked incredibly dominant. However, it's got a little bit of an asterisk to it because really who hasn't been finishing Johnny Walker at this point? For God's sakes, Volkan Oezdemir went out there and made Johnny Walker look like a guy that shouldn't have been in the UFC. I mean, it's just the way Johnny Walker's downfall needs to be studied, and the guy can't box for shit, right? Let's just call it what it is. But Magomed does have the skill set to go in there and trouble Poatan Pereira. But in my opinion, he's got to mix in the grappling. He's got to mix in the grappling just to get Poatan guessing. And if he can't take him down, look to land some ground and pound. Look to beat him up. Look to tire him out. And then if you bring it back to the feet, a tired and fatigued Poatan standing in front of Magomed Ankalaev, I think Magomed's chances skyrocket if he's able to do that. But just to go out there and try to sit on the outside and play this game, because Magomed's a counterpuncher. He loves for guys to go first, and Poatan does not overextend. He doesn't really put himself in harm's way. And I've said time and time again, the guy literally wins fights with a jab, a left hook, and a calf kick. Like, he really doesn't throw anything else. He barely throws a right hand. He barely throws in combinations. And what that does is it does not leave him open to being countered. It doesn't leave him vulnerable. So the window of opportunity that Magomed has had in the past where he's able to counter guys, he's able to, land those good clean shots, just most likely is not going to be there against Alex Pereira in a potential huge light heavyweight title fight between these two. I hope we get this fight. I think it's a great matchup, but I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video, comment your early prediction below. Do you think that Magomed Ankalaev would be able to beat Alex Pereira, or do you think Poatan gets the job done? Subscribe to the channel, help your boy out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.